Good evening. Welcome everyone to the April 7th, 2021 Abington Finance Committee meeting. We are continuing to meet in preparation for town meeting and preparing the budget and various warrant articles. Tonight we have a robust agenda before us. We have the South Shore Vocational Technical School back with us to talk more about their borrowing article. Which we talked about them when they were here for their department meeting. And we're going to go into more detail with them or see what the updated information from them is. We'll get a current status on where we are with the fiscal year 22 budget and its various components from our town manager and assistant town manager. We'll get an update from the Capital Committee. We will discuss the Police Chief Search Committee, the fire station roof issue, and then we'll go into our usual business of liaison reports, correspondence, reviewing the minutes, and we will meet again next week. Jump right in with the South Shore VOTEC discussion. We have Tom Hickey, the superintendent of the South Shore VOTEC school. We have Jim Coughlin and Tom Petrozelli with us as well. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for joining us again.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
So the board, I think all of us who are present at least, were either part or have reviewed the notes from the previous discussion where we talked about the borrowing, where you are hopeful to get into the MSBA program, but are looking at working off of a master plan for various renovations and improvements to your facilities over the course of several years. We had talked at the last time of the fact that it's not, when it was the way it looked last time and the way it looked in the article for the proposed article for the warrant looked like it would be borrowing 18 something million all at once. That's not the case, as we discussed last time. It's borrowing in chunks and installments as you work through the things that are on your master plan. And we discussed about trying to work with Sue and various other town representatives to kind of come up with a way to schedule things and word things and present things. Tom Hickey, do you want to give us an update on where things stand? I know you have been meeting with Sue and working with her, and we would love to hear where things are at right now.
Sure thing, Matt. Thanks for teeing that up. I think it was a pretty good summary of when we were meeting back, when we met back in late February. And Jim had an opportunity to follow up with Sue after our time meeting, and I appreciate the feedback we got. So since we were together, we've been working with bond counsel from Loch Lord, who helped us prepare the motion that our school committee voted on Monday night, as well as draft warrant article language that we've revised and sent along to boards of selectmen and town administrators. And I would have passed along some materials to members of the finance committee, and I wouldn't presume to go through all those slides again. If it would help, I could highlight a few things. Essentially, the way that the article is worded, we have to go to our 8 towns and ask for the full amount that we're seeking. And in our materials, we attempt to show how we arrived at that number, looking at the facilities plan and looking at the projects we haven't done and putting in some cost escalators for inflation and soft costs. But by giving us the authorization to do so, which we would need from all 8 of our towns, we have a plan to phase in these projects starting in fiscal 23, so it would have no impact on fiscal 22. And these projects would be phased in from fiscal 23 through 27. And getting into the weeds a little bit, our initial thought is that we would work on a couple of waves, 2 years of bond anticipation notes, followed by a third year where we would borrow and then wrap into a bond in fiscal 25, and then another 2 years of bond anticipation notes. And essentially what the presentation shows is that the amount of money that we're budgeting annually for capital, if we use that as a marker, it probably wouldn't be until that first bond, fiscal 25. If we stuck to our plan through fiscal 25, we would probably be borrowing about $11 million, around 7 million, and then 3 million, and then 1 million. We're not obligated to stick to that. And the messaging that I've been bringing to our other communities in the last 6 or 8 weeks remains the same. It's essentially, we may have a plan, but we have to be responsive to the economic realities of our communities. Yes, we are asking our communities to give the authorization so that we have the tools to put a plan in place. MSBA could invite us into their program at any point. And for me, and I think I speak for the committee, we obviously would need to reassess where we are, because as soon as we can get an outside entity to fund part of this, we would want to do so unless it was an imminent issue. I was in a classroom at 9 o'clock this morning with my facilities director as he showed me, as one of our custodians was taking apart one of our 1962 Univent heaters. I'm thinking, oh, great. I have to use this as an anecdote because he's showing me a 1962 pipe that's got water coming out of it. We had to move kids out of a classroom. Not a crisis. We called someone in, they've patched it up. But I must admit, it's kind of a reminder. And I said this to my facilities director, no matter what our plan is, maybe the ventilation piece, which we're thinking of fiscal 24, maybe we have to move a few things around so we don't have water spraying on kids in these classrooms. So that being said, we tried to make some projections in the presentation so that you could see real numbers. And we deliberately used some conservative projections, namely, we used a higher interest rate than what is currently on the market, because if we're borrowing money down the road, we don't know what the rates would be. And we assumed we'd be paying it back with level principal. So when I'm talking to our communities about these numbers, we want to make sure that we're not giving the appearance that these rates are guaranteed. So we're using higher numbers. I would say at the end of the day, if we come each year with one budget number, as you know that we do, we know that by doing this, the debt service part of our budget is going to increase. It did when we put on a roof in 2010, and we know it would increase here. So our plan is only as good as our town's ability to support it, and we can't overdo it. We can't borrow more than our towns can handle. And that's why I think, at least for the first half of this, through fiscal 25, in my opinion, just looking at the numbers, it wouldn't be until about fiscal 26 where, if we stuck to this plan, the capital / debt numbers would be a little bit higher.
Question. We have a trip that we booked today.
And why don't I use that as a moment to just stop and say, that's essentially, Matt, where you let me fill in some details. I'd be happy to address questions, or certainly if Jim would like to speak to any of the smaller points that he's been working on, the more detailed points on the finances as well. This might be a good time for that.
So I apologize, Tom. Could you repeat what that last point was? It wouldn't be until fiscal year 25.
Certainly. If we were to stick to our plan and phase in the borrowing as we had put in our presentation, Abington, I'll use real numbers. Abington's share of our fiscal 22 capital budget, baked into the one number we bring you, is about $151,000. So if I took the plan and phased it in with interest-only borrowing in years 1 and 2, that's fiscal 23 and 24, and then a third year of borrowing, and then we wrap it into a bond, that number for Abington in year 3 would be about 159,000. So what I'm trying to say is, initially, the amount of debt capital we probably have would go down, and then it wouldn't be until about fiscal 25 that we would see it at approximately where it is now, and then it would be increasing from there. So that's essentially where I was going with that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that folks might have, or if Jim, you want to add anything.
I can throw something in. And first of all, after our last meeting, I'd like to thank Sue and Sonia. I met with them at the town hall. They were awesome, helping me. We work with the same people, Laurie Lombard at Unibank and so forth. So we were able to get the process rolling, and they were very insightful in how you've done your bill borrowing for all of your school projects and so forth. So they were great. Again, and just to highlight what Tom said, that a lot of the capital projects over the last few years have been facility based. We have a window project that's in the budget for fiscal 22. So we have a lot of bigger projects that are part of our capital, and based upon we've been chopping away through the budget on the facility plan. Once we wrap everything into the bonding, in theory, we won't, our capital budget will decrease. We have $895,000 of capital right now that we see that diminishing greatly. Again, Tom and the administration do a great job at grants through the state, through all sorts of vocational grants to buy equipment. So we haven't had to rely on, other than a pickup truck or a Bobcat or something like that, through our budget. So, if that, as Tom mentioned, $151,000 is Abington's share of our capital, and that will disappear in theory for the first couple of years. And then we're only adding on, $40,000 to $50,000 a year of interest on the first 2 years of the bond anticipation notes. So you will actually see a decrease in your assessments over the first 2 years based upon the plan. And year 3, as Tom mentioned, in fiscal 25 is when you actually, the increase in your assessment would be a $38,000 assessment, which is, is mild in the sense of, what the bang for the buck on the project would be and so forth. So we've been very, again, as Tom mentioned, conservative with the interest rate. We're using 3.5%, which is, again, very high in today's market. But again, we want to just throw everything on the table and be as transparent as we can with the numbers that we're presenting.
Just a quick question. The 11 million you're talking about in the third year, fiscal year 25, that sort of wipes out the 7 and 3 in the first 2 years and wraps it into one bond. That's correct?
You are absolutely correct. The intention would be 7 plus 3 plus 1, and then wrap that in exactly.
What other questions do people have? I think this has been very well explained for me, the lack of questions. I just want to make sure that each of my folks get a chance to chime in if they want to. Joe or Justin or Russ or Greg.
Nothing from my side.
I'm all set too. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. I think this has been extremely well explained. I think it's I think this explanation at town meeting will go a long way to making sure that the people of each of the 8 towns are informed very well when they're making their votes.
Thanks, Matt.
Actually, that does lead to a question. So have any of the other towns voted yet on this?
No, we have, of our 8 towns, our first town meeting is actually Monday. Situate's town meeting is April 12th.
Okay.
They've historically been very early. And after April 12th, we have a bunch of town meetings on the first Monday of May. And then our final town meetings will be Abington and Cohasset, unless I think you're still May 24th. Yep. Okay, so our last 2 will be May 24th. So that's how they're spread out.
Okay. And if you get 7 yeses and 1 no, the whole thing is off. Is that how this works?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. By statute, we need to give the statute allows regional schools a couple of ways to get debt authorization. One way is under the law is what we're doing, going to each town separately, giving the town the opportunity to put it in front of their citizens. You may sometimes read in the paper when you see like there's a district-wide ballot for a new school. I think I've seen some in the in the local media recently. I think Nauset High School on the down on the Cape is getting a new school. Regional schools have another option regarding getting their district's approval, and that is a different part of the law, which is the district can fund a district-wide ballot, a special election in essence, which is done in the aggregate for all 8 communities. So our committee, that's typically not done unless it's like a brand new school, right? So for this is the process we used. So we would need 8 communities. If a community takes no action within the 60-day window of the school committee vote, then that's considered a yes. And obviously, if the town puts it on their warrant, it would need a majority vote at a town meeting. Then that's obviously would be a yes. We would need all 8.
Got it. Thank you.
Where are we at with trying to get Hingham to come in here, other communities that are in the South Shore?
Hi, Greg. As of now, we haven't had any recent communication. We do have a standing committee that we formed when we were in communications with Hull a couple of years ago. It's good that we have that standing committee in place because we have some experience and have done some research. I would say there's nothing. I would assume we would all say that COVID has done a lot with derailing certain conversations. I personally had no official conversations, but I would say, Greg, to take a bigger picture approach, and whether I'm talking about MSBA or I'm talking about other funding through other means with the legislature, there are communities in our region who, if we had a larger building, maybe more than one campus, if we were thinking big and we had a money tree, we might be able to do something. But I'd say closer to reality is the fact that we do have communities that have children in them that are not affiliated with any regional school. And I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have. But to specifically answer your question, there's been nothing recent. Hingham, Hull, Marshfield, Duxbury, and Pembroke are 5 communities in our area that are not affiliated with a regional vocational school and potentially could become part of a larger district. And with that comes cost sharing for the building and the future cost for the building.
Yeah, I just think if they're not part of this, then we should take away that their town is involved in the South Shore. Might sound a little aggressive, but I know I talk to people all the time from Hingham, and they love to tell me they're from the South Shore. So if they are, then they should start supporting the South Shore Voc-Tech.
Yeah, I would welcome any conversations, and I think we have a good place to start with what people are looking for. And the member districts get preference with governance, preference with admissions, and but I do think and you and I we've talked about it, and over the years, the demand for vocational technical education, I think, is only going to increase, and the capacity in the area is limited. But at the same time, we also know that collaborative partnerships help to pay the bills. So I know that I'm always interested in hearing from folks in the region, whether I'm talking to a workforce development board about how to better use our facility in the evenings and bring in revenue that way, using our shops to train unemployed, underemployed, or kids who have recently graduated but didn't go to our school. We have a resource that we can offer to our region, even if it's after 3 p.m. So I'm always eager to have those conversations.
And do we have kids from those communities going to South Shore Voc-Tech?
We do. Within the I can tell you, Greg, that the trend, I don't know if you can call it a trend, but this current 9th grade class that we have in the building right now, the local application demand was so great that based on our admissions policy, there were no kids from outside the district accepted. And as of this morning, I was updated that we have a freshman class of, I think, about 155 students. And again, for the 2nd year in a row, all of them are from our 8 towns. And I expect to fill that class and have a waiting list, unfortunately, but of kids from our 8 towns. So I would anticipate that once again, there wouldn't be any kids from outside of the district.
And then lastly, so if those students, sorry, I lost track. What other vocational school is around here that they could go to?
The potentially Blue Hills in Canton, as a non-resident student, where you're from a zip code where you're not affiliated, you could potentially apply to any school. Realistically, a kid's not going to, you're aware that you'll have kids, county agricultural schools are a little bit different, right? So you may have kids, a handful of kids that go to Norfolk Agricultural. You see that probably on your warrant as well. But for the communities I mentioned, Pembroke has sent kids to Silver Lake, which is a comprehensive high school, but it has vocational programs. And I would say the closest geographically, Greg, would be Blue Hills and Canton. You'd have to go to Southeastern Vocational in Easton, or further down closer to the Cape to find other regional vocational schools.
I'm just trying to look for leverage to say to these towns that if they have kids going to the school, then they need to support it.
Yeah, understood.
So, question, Tom, and I did go back and look at the presentation that you had provided us for when we met originally in February, and looking at the numbers that you had for outside towns. There were students from Duxbury, Halifax, Hingham, Hull, Kingston, Marshfield, Pembroke, Plimpton, and Weymouth.
Yes.
Several of those only one student each, a few of them 3 or 5, 10 for Hull, 13 for Duxbury and Marshfield, 38 for Pembroke. So Pembroke, I believe we had discussed at the time, seemed like a district, a town that would be sort of the most open to potentially looking at partnering. The question I have is, from your perspective, from the school district perspective, does the money that you take in for kids from outside of the district, how does that balance to the money that would be spent if they were if the town was suddenly in district?
Sure. Matt, that would
is a very complicated question.
I will, with your robust agenda, I will keep it to 30 seconds. Basically, the town's ability to pay would dictate that. I'll give you for instance. Scituate is one of our in-district communities that has the highest per pupil cost. And from time to time in my conversations with Scituate, they would certainly look at that number and say, wow, we have a higher per pupil cost than some of our other sending towns. And we all know that, and they also understand that the formula talks about a town's ability to pay. Yep. So Matt, I would say that if you have whatever the term affluent community means, if you have an affluent community who is paying non-resident tuition and they became a member of the district, it might be that the per pupil cost would be very close. However, by being a member of the district, regional transportation costs are shared. So every member of our town, every member of our district, we're fortunate as part of what we bake into our budget, we anticipate we're getting 80 cents on the dollar paid for all of our transportation costs. If I'm not a member of the district, so when I see the Marshfield bus go by my office window at 2:30 in the afternoon, Marshfield sends a full school bus to transport whoever from Marshfield is taking the bus. That cost is incurred by the town. So that's another, along with, governance, the ability to direct the future of the building. But from a financial point of view, the messaging is non-resident tuition is generally going to be higher, and transportation is an additional cost as well.
Any other questions there? Doesn't sound like anyone has any other questions. Barbara doesn't have any questions.
No, I don't have questions. Thank you.
Then no one's going to have any questions. So.
I don't know about that.
All right. With that, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I think we definitely have a lot of information before us. We can definitely make an informed recommendation when that time comes.
Thanks very much, Matt. Thanks, everybody, for having us back.
And we'll definitely let you know if anything comes up afterward.
Please do.
Thank you for your
Thanks
time.
again, folks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well,
Good night.
Bye.
Thanks, Tom.
Good night now.
going back to sharing our agenda. Next item on the list is the current status of the fiscal year 22 budget. Scott, Sue, how we looking? Where we at?
Sue, I'll leave this one to you, but we've got a balanced budget right now. We still have, there's some stuff up in the air as far as the ARPA money. We have not received any direction on what's going to happen when that monies arrive. I've reached out and I've had meetings with the Mass Municipal Association twice this week on it. And what we're getting right now is, help is on the way. We'll get you some answers, but it's going to be probably another couple of weeks. So I think that'll make a difference when we do see that on, we may, hopefully we'll have plenty of time before town meeting when we know what we can do with that and we've got the money in place. And, maybe we'll be able to do some more of the capital stuff that we're going to, recommend putting off for now.
So Scott, can you just touch a little bit on what that money is that you're referring to, where it's coming from, where it's coming through?
Yeah, so the ARPA money is the American Recovery Plan Act. I believe it's what it stands for. It's the, the one that the president signed shortly after he got into office. It should be what we're expecting is, I believe, 1.64 million would be Abington's share of that money. The money, what we do know is when we do get it, it will come in two payments. The first payment should be sometime, within the next 30 to 60 days, hopefully sooner than later. It'd be 50-50. So the first payment be approximately $800 and something thousand. The money we're not really super clear on the uses of the money, but one of the uses would be to use for any lost revenue. So a revenue replacement between what we should have made this year and, what, because of COVID, we're off. So that's obviously a significant amount of money. And then the other, there's other different ways to use the money. Some of it can be used for infrastructure. But right now we're not clear on what those criteria are and what they mean. So I don't want to go too much into them because people will hear something and then assume that something is coming out of it that may not be factual. So hopefully, like I said, we have a bi-weekly CEO meeting with the lieutenant governor and folks from Division of Local Services, and we get updates from them, and they're waiting for the updates because once the feds say what we can use it for, then we need the state to say what we can use it for and how we can account for it. How we show that we use it and that we can use it in this fiscal year. So it's coming. Help is on the way. We just don't know exactly what form we're going to see it in yet.
But you said to go back to the very start of this, right now we're at a balanced budget.
Yeah, the latest one, it does make some assumptions of taking our snow and ice deficit this year, since we don't have any free cash. We would request that we take that out of the stabilization. And I think there may be another request on our MS4, which is, I think, as we've discussed, is the payment for stormwater management.
Stormwater removal.
Yeah, and that's something that I think we would look to take out of stabilization, probably just this one year, obviously. But I think that's probably it. But I think, Sue, you can maybe fill in some of the blanks. I know you and I had gone back and forth on a couple of other things. And I think we did, I believe Sue sent you a copy today.
Yes.
Good.
I got and sent out the original copies of the warrant, might have been yesterday, and I got the updated one for the special from Sue right before this meeting and sent it out to the committee right before that. So if anyone on the committee hadn't been checking their email within like the 2 minutes before the start of this meeting, you have another updated email.
Well, and obviously
I did notice on the original one, the number, like the dollar figures for both snow and ice and the MS4 were identical. And I figured that was probably wrong.
That's where the updated one came through.
Yep.
It's now 175.
Yeah. So the MS4 was about half or less than half of what the.
That's what happens when you, that's what happens when you copy paste something.
Absolutely.
I can't hear anything.
Can you hear us now, Deb? Oh,
we lost Deb.
Deb's disconnecting, probably going to reconnect. Hopefully, at least.
So since I meant to send you the balanced budget, Matt, and I don't think I did.
No.
So, but it's still balanced, but since that budget that we balanced earlier this week, we are in negotiations with a new trash hauling service, and it's coming in significantly lower so that we can help the school department with what they were talking about last week. So there's no definite on that at this point until we get a signed contract, but it's still going to be a balanced budget without using those ARPA funds until we know what we can use them for.
So in the version of the, as we discussed with the school department last week, they were looking to add several positions because of sort of growth and shortfalls in staffing, mostly for English language learners and for, I believe it was a lower elementary grade classroom size.
I don't know what's going on, Matt, but I have no volume from anybody.
Okay, we'll do our best taking
Can't
notes.
hear you.
I'll chat you.
Did you turn your speaker down?
Telling Deb she can drop off and we'll do our best taking notes as I'm looking right at you, Joe. I'm also taking notes myself, so.
Yeah, I could always go back and fill in the parts that she missed.
Yep. So, so Sue, I was very long-windedly getting to a question, which was, what if any positions are in, the current version of the budget, and what are we hoping to, or what would be
Okay,
the ones to get in?
sorry.
No worries.
So currently in the budget is funding a new day captain for the fire department and replacing the person who gets moved up. It's funding the MRI study for the police department and putting them at 31 police officers. It is funding Holbrook Dispatch, which is actually decreasing the budget because we're going to get a grant for that for the first 3 years and then a declining grant after that. And then it is also giving the school as much as we can to fund their negotiate. Well, they already had money in their number for their negotiations. So I talked to Felicia today, and we're going to talk next week about how we can come to a number that the school and the town agrees upon. And it looks like what Scott decided to do with the extra money that we saved from recycling and giving it to the school brought us a lot closer together. And Scott, you might want to speak to how you feel about your staffing in your office and that there's a funding for that as well.
Yeah, currently, in my office, we have, I have one administrative assistant who is sharing administrative duties with myself, the Board of Selectmen, the Conservation Commission, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. It is, way too much, and it's just very, very inefficient. There's other duties throughout town hall that are being ignored that I'm trying to establish a position that
Mac,
pick up on those.
I was.
So would that be kind of focusing on the person who's currently in your office, making that person more dedicated to your office and adding someone to do the other various things, or adding someone else to your office? What?
So the person would be part of my office. It would be another position at the same sort of administrative type position. The current person doing administrative work for several boards would focus primarily on work for the Board of Selectmen and my office. The new person would take over a lot of the, administrative duties for the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Conservation Commission, as well as we need someone who will work pretty, on our insurance claims and just monitoring our town liability insurance and the policies that we have there. So there's a lot of paperwork, especially when something happens that comes along with that. And there's also an opportunity there with some of our insurance companies with different, with our liability insurance company with different benefits that they offer, that we could take better advantage of if we had somebody who was just focused on that. And these are, different things that we would probably save money on. It might be some sort of grants that they offer that offer training for our DPW workers on, using the aerial lifts and stuff like that. So it's something that's just lacking. There's also this person, I would also have them do as, administrative work for my office, in such as we don't have sort of a centralized person who is responsible for maintaining our electronic presence, I guess is the word, as far as, what's going on our Facebook page, what's going on Twitter, social media, how we are messaging, electronically with the public. What do we, our website is sort of, and it's a great platform, but we don't spend enough time keeping it up to date. And what you see in most municipalities is people will put it together and it'll be great and it'll look good for a while, but then it gets stagnant, and it gets stagnant fast. So that would be one of the functions that this person would take care of. It'd be sort of that sole repository, somebody to go out and say to everybody, look, what's going to go on. And it may be not only just department heads, but to committees, and making sure that we have the most up-to-date agendas posted on the calendar. We have the most up-to-date, minutes of meetings, and that way, it's easier for the public and a more enjoyable experience for the public to access and get information from us. So it's a big hole, and it's an important one because things just get missed, and people get very frustrated when they try to go online and try and find something and it's just not there. So it's what we have now is we have a system where there's a lot of people responsible for a lot of things, but nobody's sort of in charge of wrangling it.
Yep.
So it's just, that's one other duty amongst these other ones that could be fulfilled and that I think would make a huge difference. There's,
Would it be a full-time or a part-time position?
no, it's definitely a full-time, is a lot of work, just as, just as the recording secretary is part-time. You'd have part-time just being that and the administrative assistant for the conservation and the zoning board of appeals. There are a lot of other things that, that just sort of get missed at town hall, that this would be kind of a catch-all position for a lot of those things. There's a lot of people, I think Deb will be the first to agree that a lot of people are doing multiple jobs in there at that level, and it's a lot of work. So, this is going to ease some of that burden. It's going to be, like I said, it allows us to do a lot of things that we're just not able to do. One thing that I've been trying to sort of get together since I started there, that would be an ongoing thing, is finding a way to, get feedback from the citizens. And I don't mean just by following Facebook, but like a, sort of a meaningful way of communicating, whether it's through, some sort of continuous, a message that we get out and say, what are we doing? What are we doing well with this? Surveys that we can find out that what is it that you're seeing in the community that you need that needs attention.
So my next question, I feel like I'm asking a lot of the questions tonight, but next question on this is because, at least for me, this is the first time I'm hearing about this position. Is this something that has been sort of behind the scenes for a long time? Because I know there have been other departments that have been looking for a position here or there, at least over the last few years, not necessarily all in this year. Kind of where does it fall in the line? Has it worked its way up to the top? Like that kind of thing.
It's more important to me, which is,
and that's why part of why I'm asking, because the boss usually gets what the boss wants. So.
Well, I don't think I ask for a lot. But,
no, certainly true.
But it is, it is. I mean, when I look at the volume of work that one administrative assistant is doing up in my office for, the selectmen, and then, my goal when I came in to the town, which is almost a year now, one of the big things I wanted to do, and what I heard from when I was interviewing, was that, we don't do a good job communicating with the public.
Yeah.
We don't do a good job in responding necessarily, because we're not reaching out, we're not getting feedback. So to me, it has always been something that I've talked about trying to do. But as you recall, I think my first few meetings with you is we were ripping apart a budget. And we were looking for ways to squirrel.
You definitely jumped in at a time where a smooth and easy transition was not exactly in the cards.
And so, I mean, and I do come from, in my previous position, administrative staff and support staff is how I was able to get a lot of things done. And so it is important to me. And the position is important, and it's one, and again, it's one that I think the town will see immediate effects from. But also it's people who are applying for zoning relief, people who are applying for conservation relief, people who have to get in front of boards and committees that have very strict deadlines and very strict criteria on when things have to be posted and noticed and advertised. To have all three of those at the responsibility of one person, not necessarily, for three different committees, is not necessarily a good plan.
Are we going to see another budget at some point? We haven't seen one since January, so.
Yeah, I think Sue was just saying that she was going to get that to us.
Matt, I actually just emailed it to you about 15 minutes ago when I said I was gonna get it to you.
All right, thank you.
I think you'll like it much better than the January version.
Certainly hope so.
I wouldn't be asking for anything if it wasn't better.
Let's
It's
see,
very
yeah.
hard to, as Sue explains, she lives with it, you live with it every day. He explains, oh, we're adding this position, adding that position, but without numbers in front of us, it's very hard to comprehend all that
Yeah.
verbally, at least for me. Maybe I'm slow.
And I mean, in the big scheme of things, yeah, they're down the road. There was talk, that Sue and I had of other positions that, a maintenance position that would work for, specifically town hall, the library, and the senior center, and maybe pick up a bit, if we had an issue or a quick handyman issue at, police or the fire station. We don't have that. We don't have any sort of, we have some service contracts, but we don't have sort of that general day-to-day maintenance to keep up on stuff. We have some folks that come in and clean. So most stuff that we do is reactive. And, that has a cost to it also. So I'm not looking to add that now, but that was something that I thought would be important in the future. And obviously the big thing that, a couple big things that I'll be advocating for if we, if some brighter days are ahead, is the shared planner. I've actually doing my best to find grant money, and we've asked Allison Sullivan to petition the legislature to help us with some money for that. I've in talks, the town of Whitman and the town of Rockland are very supportive of the idea, and they too are trying to find some money, and hopefully next year, I think it's probably about $33,000 or $35,000 per town. We can work and do that. To me, that's a very important thing, but there's moving parts as far as having 2 other towns that we have to get on board with this that are in the same position. Actually, I think Rockland's having it a little tougher time over there than we are, but financially they're being very cautious. In the human resources, I can't stress enough that I will be coming back at some point in time for a full-time human resource manager. And, I think you'll see, you'll see a great reduction in our expense line item for labor council once we have that person on board. But also it's just very important. That person would also, handle, probably be a benefits coordinator and stuff like that too. But
Sorry.
Is
No,
it-
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, would it be more economical, like if we were going to share a town planner with 2 other towns, would it not be more economical to have a town planner that could maybe wear a couple other hats in our town?
I don't know what other hats a town planner would wear. It's a very specific job. I mean, I could, you could have a town planner in our town that could easily be here full time. What we've done is we've asked Liz Shea to be quote unquote assistant town planner, hopefully to a planner someday, just because the grant opportunities that are out there that we're missing out on, because we don't have someone, actively going after them. It's crazy. She's doing it now, and that's great. And hopefully, she'll help us find one that'll even help us with some startup program for the shared planner. But I don't know what other duties I would assign to a planner.
Okay, I just know that, or I think anyways, it was brought up that, if we, hindsight being 2020, if we had a town planner, some of the situations that we have run into by not having one, that cost us money.
Yeah, I don't know what those situations might be, but I do believe that that's possibly true. I mean, the technical assistance that they would offer to your planning board would be, would be huge, but you're lucky that you do have someone on the planning board that has some really good planning experience. But I think they would be the first, and I'm sure they were one to advocate for this position. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to these, the developments that are going in, the biggest thing that worries me right now that I think is as Route 18 gets its final coat of pavement and becomes established, we don't know how that future development might end up. We have a new developer coming in over at Southfield, and we don't know what sort of changes that developer is going to want and what that's going to mean to us. And so, yeah, I think it's huge, but I don't think, unfortunately, I don't think I could think of another hat to put on it other than maybe a conservation agent. Sometimes they do have a background in conservation and environment. So,
and knowing a few people who are in the field of town planning, it's a very specialized position. It's not something that kind of overlaps with a lot of other stuff. Most of the people in that field look to be town planners or city planners or deputy city planners in larger places.
But so we would be sharing that position with 2 other towns?
yeah, I mean, it's either share, and the only reason I say share them with 2 other towns, because I know there's 2 other towns that actually need the position, and there are 2 other towns that share a lot of our interest as far as how we look at
Right.
future development.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't be just I wouldn't say it could be any 2 other towns. It would have to geographically these
towns that make sense,
these
similar
2 make
towns.
sense, exactly, very specifically make sense. And maybe that idea doesn't work out. I think it's worth a try. I think that each town, I think already we've committed to a support position for it. And we actually have a very good person in that support position. So I think that makes a big difference. And that's the other piece of the puzzle that Whitman and Rockland will have to figure out, because if you don't have a good support position, it becomes very difficult for them to.
Right, to work all 3
Right.
without the support.
Right.
All right. All right, thank you.
I was going to ask with respect to the budget, thanks for sending the numbers. Is it possible to get a list of the positions added and the positions not added? You just described some positions not added. It would be good for us. I would like to know what we didn't add because we couldn't afford it. Obviously, it would only be ones that you seriously considered. It wouldn't be everything under the sun, but it would be helpful so that, you could look at, all right, well, that's what we didn't get this year. Is that something we want to make sure that next year is looked at or something like that? I don't know if that's realistic or not.
No, that's that's a great idea. I appreciate that. I'll definitely do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. I agree. That would be very good information to have in a specific list. Does anyone have other questions on the current state of the budget? Joe?
Just a couple of questions. No, actually, it is one question. So it seems like that a town planner and an HR person can translate into, sure, there's a salary, but because their job exists, we're either finding ways to save money or saving money or finding grants that seem like almost kind of like a return on investment. So I'm wondering why those positions are harder to get into the budget when it appears like there'll be cost savings.
Well, the town planner position, because they're both expensive positions. They're going to be starting, in the 80,000 plus range, and then the associated setup that goes with that. So the thought with obviously with the the town planner, which would probably be the first of those two, because it's the easiest and the least expensive if you're sharing it with 3 other towns. But really, that's, I just got here for me to walk in and say I need, if you throw in all associated costs, 200 and something $1,000 thrown into the budget, so I could, in this environment, I'm a realist. I wouldn't do it, but I will let you know that it's coming. You've gone this far without it. To wait another year or a year and a half while we plan it and try and do it in a methodical way makes more sense to me. We have very good legal counsel that specifically brought on for labor counsel when I came on board. So they were new with me, and we are in the process of going through negotiations with pretty much every labor contract that we have. They're all up. We're doing them, and what we're finding is we're taking this opportunity to update them all. They're all, most of them are carried over, and there's MOUs, and there's all sorts of nuances to them that we're cleaning up to make things easier for us, easier for the accounting department, easier for the actual bargaining units to follow and understand. So right now, I'm in the middle of something that I would not want to bring somebody else into. I'd rather bring somebody else into when this is all completed and say, here you go, you're starting afresh. You've got a whole bunch of nice, fresh new packages. Now, keep it up, and, let's start looking at some townwide policies that we can adopt. And then, like I said, as far as the plan, it's really just money. And with the planner, it's also the moving parts of 2 other towns to coordinate with.
And to that point, with grant opportunities, they just don't happen overnight. It's not like there's a grant and you can have it tomorrow. There's a lot of paperwork and legwork and things that we need to put together to prove that we are competitive for that grant before the state and federal governments will give us that money.
Is it a third of 80 grand?
It would, no, my guess is that, if you throw in, you have to throw in the other costs that go with it, as far as, health insurance and other pension and expenses like that. So it's more. It'll probably, like I said, I'm thinking it's $33,000 per town is what we were discussing to carry all in. But like I said, although I would put it in this year's budget, I know the other 2 towns are not ready to do it.
Would you be the one finding the person?
Yeah, we would collaborate. I think we would put, the 3 town, the 2 town administrators and myself would get together, and we would work together on putting together a scope and what we think. We'd also work with, Old Colony Planning Council, and we'd work with the, we'll probably bring in, I have some consultants that I used to hire. I'd probably discuss it with them and see what their thoughts were on how to market it and put it together and make it make sense. I don't think it's that unusual. There's a lot of areas. I think if you go down the Cape, there's regional planners down that way.
Yeah. No. It's my question was much less thoughtful. It was just more about, if you found it, maybe you could charge them a fee. It's somewhat of a joke, but meaning like maybe they took care of the insurance, but that's why I was asking.
There's always an angle with Greg.
I was going to say, one of the things we appreciate with Greg and the benefit that he brings is there is always an angle to the question.
Always never about what you're probably thinking, unfortunately.
Always looking for a way to save the town some money or get the town a benefit.
Yeah.
Which we very much appreciate, Greg.
Yep.
Other questions on the budget? Okay, moving on. Update from our members of the Capital Committee. Joe and Greg.
I thought,
and actually, I believe we have our chairman of the Capital Committee, Alex Haggerty, who is also the vice chairman of the Board of Health currently.
But
And I believe he has Darth Vader with him there.
yeah. And also with me is the Vice Chairman of the Capital Planning Committee, Steve Wakeland.
Steve, thank you
Oh,
both for
I thought
joining.
you were calling Steve Darth Vader.
Of course, that makes me the emperor. Come on. Yeah, no, so, no, thank you for having me, Mr. Chairman, and thank you
Appreciate your
to the
time.
Finance Committee for having us. So I just, because this is the first time addressing the Finance Committee, I just wanted to say, so, the Abington Capital Planning Committee, we're newly formed this year. So we're going through all the phases of, trying to organize really for the future. I have to give a huge shout out to the entire committee. To Steve Wakeland, to the Vice Chairman, to Tim Chapin from the Selectmen, Chris Coyle from the School Committee, Joe Rosas from the Finance Committee, and Greg Balazarian from the Finance Committee as well, Ellen Delaney from the Housing Authority, and also Marty Golightly from the Health Department. We've, over the last couple of weeks, since February, we have been meeting with each department head, going over what are their capital needs for fiscal year 2022 and looking to 2026. So Sue, our assistant town manager and financial director, before we organized as a committee, went to each department and gathered what their capital needs were. So then when we came in to play, we interviewed with each department to discuss, where their needs were, where their priorities were. And after meeting with each department head, we reviewed, what we have for free cash, the very little we have of it, and then looking into, the stabilization fund, and also the enterprise funding. So some things are going to be able to not have to be capital funding. So there are some, like, for example, the water department, the sewer department, I know I'm forgetting some, the Strawberry Valley Golf Course, their capital needs for fiscal year 2022 are going to be paid off by the enterprise fund. And as for MS4, specifically on the projects that the town could actually get fined for, we're, as Sue and Scott mentioned before, talking about the stabilization fund. Now, as for our capital plan, we really didn't go into depths about, we talked about with the departments their needs for the next 5 years. But as for FY22, as you guys know, revenue was not good this year. So there's not a lot of capital items we can pay for. So we had to really buckle down and say, what are our priorities? As for vehicles and equipment for FY22, there's nothing we really, the committee agreed upon that there was nothing urgent that we needed to discuss. I know Scott was talking about possibly because of what happened at the police department with a recent accident. So there's talks about, that new vehicle, and that vehicle was new itself. So not even replacing an old one. And then, so the biggest thing that our committee agreed upon for capital funding, or the highest priority for fiscal year 2022, was DPW supplement Chapter 90 funding, which is, let me see, I have the number in front of me here, 560,000 for road and infrastructure. So DPW supplement Chapter 90 funding. As we learned from DPW Director John Stone, understanding that, the road work that we want to do in town can't always be funded, or what we need to get everything done can't be fully funded by Chapter 90. Just for example, in a fiscal year for Chapter 90 funding, we'll typically get maybe about 300, or was it 370,000? I could be off, a year. And Lincoln Street alone, looking at the needs of that street, will take about 80% of that Chapter 90 funding that fiscal year. So that's our biggest project, our biggest capital item. Well, second, actually, it's the second one. And then the next one, we decided to, discuss with you guys, and also to hopefully maybe perhaps bring it up to town meeting, talking about the fire station building design and bidding. This, of course, does need your approval and need the approval of the town at town meeting. And that price is 3.5 million. So the fire station building committee just finished their feasibility study on where they think it's best to build a proposed new fire station, getting rid of the old two and combining them off of Galinowitz Way. So those are our recommendations. And Steve, did I leave anything out?
No, actually, those are the two big items. I mean, 3.5 million to bring it for another town is a big deal. But we didn't want it to die. My feeling was that we didn't want it to die with us. So we do want to bring it forward.
Yeah, no, and I think if given the opportunity to be able to talk about it at, whether it's approved or not approved at town meeting, I think it's important to have that conversation with the residents and the voters to say, hey, look, is this a worthwhile investment to look into? On my own personal opinion, aside, stepping away as chairman of the capital planning, I think it's a worthwhile investment for the town to look into. Seeing the needs of the fire department right now and the buildings as they are right now, I think it's something to look into, and definitely a worthwhile investment. And not only could be used proposally for the fire department, but for the building department, the health department, which the health department is growing as we're in this pandemic. And also to see into the future of, possibly doing trainings at a new fire station building. And I know also you guys are going to be discussing tonight as well, the roof of one of the stations tonight, one of the fire stations. And I think with repairing and things like that over the years, that possibly saving, ultimately in the long run, saving some costs on different fixtures.
Alex, do we have some discussion last week as well on the town hall roof and library roof?
That was going to be my
Yes.
question. 'Cause
Okay.
I saw that on the draft warrant when I was looking at that.
I put it on the draft warrant, so because I was under the impression we were going to try to borrow for it, but go ahead and
Yes.
talk on that, please.
Oh, sorry, Sue. Sorry, I forgot that. Yes, no. So we also did discuss about borrowing for the town hall capital needs and also for the library needs. I think it's again another worthwhile investment to go into. We love our town hall and love our beautiful library, so we want to keep things moving.
Sue,
Greg, yeah.
a quick question, because I was talking to somebody earlier and I thought to myself, and they also mentioned how much it's going to cost each person. So for the $33 million, do we have a figure of what taxes will go up at that point per household?
Sue, you would be better.
I actually
Yeah.
don't have that information, but I can get together with Sonia. She does the tax stuff, and she's back from vacation on Friday. I will check with her on the cost for per tax hold.
Yeah, the only reason I say it is because when this is presented to the town, I think those are going to be the numbers that everybody has to get a grip with.
Yeah, I
30
can guarantee you she's going to be ready to speak on it, just like Leo was.
Yep.
I was thinking also it may be worthwhile to look at what is being put forth for the capital plan, and looking at, the breakdown of if you approve this, these are the numbers that we're looking at as far as the average home. If you approve this and these are the numbers that you're looking at. If you approve this, this, and this, kind of a breakdown of each.
Yep.
So that the
Item.
taxpayers
Item
have
and
a better
the
idea of
the
what we'd be looking
associated
at.
cost.
And when we get more guidance from the state as to that money that they're supposedly allotting us, we might be able to, fund some of the other capital items that people are looking for later in the fall. It's not that, we're shutting down their request, but it's just, we need to have guidance from the state as to what that money can be used for. And they haven't given us that direction yet.
Good point, Sue.
I also think we have to try to give some feedback to the committee that looked into this new fire thing and explain to them that maybe, this is maybe coming to us coming to the town with a couple proposals. Because if it gets voted down, nothing's happening. And I think that, there's a lot of people that understand that there is something that's needed. Whether it's a $33 million something, my answer, just so everybody understands, is absolutely no. So I can't find, by talking to other people in towns, I can't find anyone who's put in a building like that other than a school. There isn't one example that anyone can give me. So if it was a little bit more understandable or palatable, 15 million, 20, whatever, but something that's so big, I just don't understand how the majority of people are going to say, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Sue, what's a ballpark number of how many households are in this town? Just ballpark.
I really couldn't tell you. I don't come with those numbers at the table, but I do agree with you. You're talking about a building committee that works for the fire department, that, most of them work for the fire department, and maybe Scott, you can add to this, but going forward, if they agree to the design, then we can put other people on that committee that might have a broader perspective than just what the fire department wants. Not trying to downsize what the fire department's looking for, but
yeah,
make again, go out. You have the committee that knows what they wanted, and maybe go to, now you know what you want. Let's put another committee together to say, what really do we need? What do you think?
So I think in that same, sorry, Matt, in that same vein, I think we're talking about spending $3.5 million on the building design. I mean, that's 35 town planners, right? So I don't know how we're saying we can't afford a town planner when we're going to spend $3.5 million on a design and bidding for this fire station. I mean, throw it into that. I mean, like, somewhere it doesn't make sense to me.
So just to kind of add in a little bit and jump to the next part, since we're technically talking about this year's capital plan right now. Just one thing is, we did with building the new middle high school, we went through a process where we put together a committee to guide that process, that had people from various boards, including the school board, but also had people from the town on it who were not part of the school. And they went through a process that included getting comps of other towns that had built, other towns that were either comparable or close to comparable, that had built buildings that were at least similar in purpose or along the same lines, so that they would have the information to compare as they went through and provided. And I think when they went through the first iteration of possible plans, I think there were 18 different possibilities for where and what would be built, and it was trimmed down from there. So I think that using that experience that the town just went through for that would be, I think, very useful for the fire department building committee and for that project moving forward. With that said, I think we can move on to other capital committee items and plans if we have them, for focusing more so on the FY22 budget right now.
As of right now, looking, because I know I'm meeting with Scott this afternoon, talking about it's not that we don't want to do other projects. It's how are we going to afford them, and also, as Sue was mentioning before, see what what the state is going to be able to give us.
Yep.
So we can do some more projects. But as it stands right now, those are the two majors for this year.
All right. Any questions for Alex and Steve and Joe and Greg?
My only question, I think you've answered it, but I just want to clarify. The police department has a regular schedule of replacing its cruisers. Are we sort of skipping this year? Is that, or is it we gonna do their regular schedule, just nothing extra?
Well, right now, the plan is to hold on it.
Okay.
And then we'll see, again, we'll see what the funding brings from ARPA and what we can do with it, and, just how much we have. And then I'll work with we'll work with the chief to sort of figure out what we can do. But yeah, I think this year is going to be, a little, it'll be unique. It'll be less than what we would normally do.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask real quickly, the sewer manholes, is that literally just replacing the manhole covers? That's what that line item is?
I'm offended by that term, by the way.
I would have to ask John.
Curves and holes?
I believe it was also to line to line them, which would mean they would probably cut up around them, take out the collar, put a new collar in, and then new rim.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and all of that from the sewer department, that will come out of the enterprise fund.
Comes out of their retained earnings, correct?
Question regarding the town hall and library. What's the breakdown of the 1.3 million as far as roof, doors, windows?
So
that when I saw it originally, I read roof for 1.3 million, and that seems like an awful lot for roofing.
So yeah, so what I did is after we had the library director and the trustee on from the library, I contacted an engineering firm that I used quite a bit in the past, and asked them to come out, take a look, and give me just some square foot breakdown. So it was some quick and down and dirty numbers, but fairly accurate numbers. And it was a little over, or just under 900,000 would be the library roof. And then roughly, I think we figured it to 500,000 or 600,000 would be the town hall roof. And then the remainder would be the doors and windows. That being said, those are square foot numbers. My intention is what I'm in the process of is putting the, you can't just hire the engineer to come out and do the work for you. You have to go through the process of the RFQ. So I'm in that process now. There'll be so the engineer will end up on board. I'm trying to have this as sort of a placeholder. I think the number won't come down for the roof for the library, not likely for the roof. But the possibility is when I have the engineer out on and actually being paid, they can do a better look at this town hall roof. There is one particular part of it that we have some serious concerns with, but it may be a lot less. To look at the shingles on the town hall roof, they don't look like they're in as bad a shape as what I see when I look at the library roof. So it may be more of just a repair, but where the buildings are the same age, it may not be. It may be, and it may work for the economies of scale that they may say, look, you don't have to do it this year, but you're going to do it in a year and a half. and you probably get a better value if you bid them both out together and do them now. So those are things that I'm trying hard, because it's very important to get the library roof done, if nothing else. So trying how to get those numbers as quickly as possible to refine them, but they're basically square foot numbers, that's what the engineering firms are carrying for these kind of projects.
Other questions?
And that we also borrow for? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else there?
I'm good.
All right. Alex and Steve, thank you both very much for your time. We really appreciate you coming and joining us and providing information to us tonight. Joe and Greg do not get to leave yet, but you guys do.
Thank you
all.
very much for your
Appreciate
time.
your time.
Thank you.
Those guys are great, by the way. On
Thanks, guys.
those guys are great on the capital committee.
Good to hear, Greg.
Awesome.
And from knowing both of them, not a surprise. All right. Next item is the Police Chief Search Committee.
Let's stop calling it that.
Okay.
Because
what would we like to call it?
So what we're looking for is, I've put out an RFP to hire a police chief search consultant firm. This is a
consultant firm.
Right. So this is a company that will come out and it's their recruitment firm. So basically they come out and they will advertise, they will go through the whole recruitment process. They will do an assessment. They will weed out people that are not eligible for one reason or do not rise to a certain level. They will provide an assessment of their top 6 candidates to see if they're, fit for the job. They'll do psychological evaluations, and they'll actually bring it down to probably a final 2 or 3. My request would be to give me your top 2 and rank them 1 and 2. And at that point, in consultation with the selectmen, I will make, the final decision as described by the charter. So what I have to do and what we need money for is to hire the consultant. Now I do not have one yet. The number that I'm giving you for it is, there's a company called Badge Quest that they've done many of these projects in the past. And I asked them for, hey, give me an idea of what this will cost. And that was their estimate. What I'm doing now, and actually it's advertised and it's out on the street. There's a company that Badge Quest has it now. There's a company called Paradigm Associates. There's Collins Center. There's 3 or 4 people that I sent it to. It's advertised in the Beacon. So I expect to get a few more requests, but it is kind of a specialized headhunting type operation. So I haven't selected one yet. I will, the committee will be the selectmen that I will work with to make the selection of this firm. So there is no search committee for a police chief, but there is a committee that's working with me to select the firm that will conduct this for us. And right now that it's more of a placeholder with you guys, let you know that we're going to be looking for the funds for it. I believe it will be the 21st of this month when everything's due, and I'll make on the 2nd Monday in May, I'll probably make that selection with the consultation of the selectmen, and we'll pick that firm. And so we'll know the exact dollar amount then. But that would be, I think, what did I say? It was 25,000.
Said 21 to 25.
Yeah, I think 25 would be the upper end. What dictates it is, what we put in, and along with the selectmen when we meet with them, is what our ultimate criteria is and how much we want these folks to work for us. And what they put together a brochure, and they put together, they do a lot of the advertisement, outreach, recruitment. So again, that's the upper end. We're not asking you to vote the money tonight, just, but if you're not inclined to approve it, let me know now, and, we'll go in a different direction, I guess, because we don't have the funds for it.
I have no issue
Scott.
with what you're doing on this, but I would say, and for a note for the selectmen, maybe they should be helping with this as well, because it definitely sounds like they made a decision. Trying to be as eloquent as I can. I'm not that.
I think you covered it with they made a decision.
Yeah.
Okay,
And,
thanks.
and that's fine. They will be involved with up to a point, but the charter is pretty specific on what the process is on how I pick and hire a
Yep.
new police chief. So that, they will be involved in so much as what the charter is requiring them to be involved. And then obviously my intention would be to involve them again at the very end. So I'm not sort of doing this in a.
No, and I have no issues with anything you're doing. My point is, if somebody made my life really difficult, I'd really make their life difficult.
Again, back to Greg with the angles. So, Justin.
So, yeah, I assume we're doing this because is it required to have sort of an external voice in this decision? That's the first question, or part of my question. And then the second is, do we feel like internally we don't understand what makes a good police chief candidate, so we need to go to an expert? Like, we don't have someone in-house that can help make that decision without spending this money?
No, I absolutely don't have anybody in-house.
Okay.
If I had an HR manager, I would work with them. But the charter specifically asks me to bring in 3 police chiefs that are not affiliated with the town. And, so I do specifically have to go outside the town and consult with them. And then there's also, I wasn't here. I don't know what the environment was like, but I do know that there was a feeling that there was a problem. And I think that bringing in external help to look at this is sort of that third party who has no interest in it whatsoever, other than to do a good job, takes all the politics out of it, takes it out of, them thinking that way, I've already made up my mind on who I want, or the selectmen have already made up. It's us just doing what we think is best for the organization.
And Scott, correct me if I'm wrong.
Is there
the search firm would be reviewing both internal and external candidates,
That's
if there
correct.
are any.
Correct.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. So there's a chance we spend this money and do this and hire someone who's already in the department anyways, correct?
You know what? If in fact at the end of the day the best person for that job is within, to me that's a home run. That we have an internal candidate that rises to the top and turns out to be the best person for the job. Absolutely. And maybe that is going to be the case. I don't know. But that's kind of the nice part of bringing in sort of a uninterested party in it, and someone who, Badge Quest has been doing this for many years. I know of, just locally, 2 towns that they've worked with, and Paradigm Associates have been around for quite a long time. And I think when I get the information and the feedback from them, when they hand in what their prospectus is and scope of work, I'll share it with this group too, because I think you'd be fairly impressed at what you get for the $25,000. It's pretty comprehensive.
I would just add, I don't have much opinion on this, but in the corporate world, if you're hiring an executive, you've got to assume that if you hire it with a search firm, that cost is anywhere from 50 to even 100% of the salary of the person you're hiring. So if you're going to get a search firm that's going to help you hire somebody for $25,000, it seems like a decent price. But
yeah, I mean, especially because if you hire the wrong person, it can cost you a lot more than $25,000.
$25,000
to deal with. So yeah.
It would cost
So-
me dearly if I hired the wrong person.
Would this be the only cost, or do you have costs for someone going finding the candidates as well? Or
No, this is turnkey, and you'll see, in their scope, basically, they do, like I said, they're responsible for 100% of the recruitment. They will evaluate the applicants. They will break it down to the most qualified and do an assessment of probably 6 candidates. I think any more than that, then it starts costing more money, but I think that's kind of a fair number.
Joe, I know you had some questions that you were looking to get answered. I don't know if they've already been answered or if you wanted to touch on any of them.
No, I was thinking that Badge Quest was the firm, but now that Scott explained it, that's not the case. So my questions really don't apply. I am trying to Google to see who was involved in the Boston Police Commissioner, because clearly something went wrong there, right? I hope it's not Badge Quest.
They have a fairly extensive human resources department for the city of Boston, though. I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, true. It might have been internal.
And they might have done it internally.
That explains it.
But, so anytime I do bring a number, I mean, we have to start somewhere before we hire someone. We just sort of, because now we have to go through that whole process, and it takes, 3-4 weeks before, we can do an RFP or an invitation for bid or whatever. So we always have to start somewhere to get an idea or a ballpark. And actually that request went through our labor attorney in a roundabout way for me to get that answer.
Other questions about the police chief search firm?
I don't have any.
When would we be expecting to look at an actual reserve fund transfer request?
I hope to have somebody on board, like I said, very first week, second week of next month. So it would be shortly after, probably the meeting following that, I would come in. I'll have a number by then. So maybe that first or the second week in May. The goal is to make sure I have someone on board and get through this process, that we have an agreement with the candidate, and a successful candidate by the beginning of August. So we're ready to, onboard them September 1.
Any other questions there? Last questions on that? All right. Not police, fire station roof.
Yeah, so went through the full bidding process on that. I think I sent you the list of respondents. We're required to go with the low bidder. The low bidder was FRG Contracting. They submitted 10 references, all for similar projects and larger. That's what they do. They specialize in EDPM roofing. They're legit. Checked with the Secretary of State. They're sending me back their contract. Waiting for that. Their certificates of insurance. They're required to give me a 50% payment bond. Et cetera, et cetera. But they've checked out their references. I managed to get through to a few of them. They seem very pleased with the work that they did. So
that's good to hear.
How long will the roof last?
There'll be there's a 10-year warranty on the labor and material. The roof should last 25 years. Should outlast the building
we
if
could-
the building committee gets what they want.
So I was gonna say, we could stay in the fire department for another 25 years now.
The answer to that is long enough. So we are looking for a request right now for a
Yeah.
transfer of $28,462
Correct.
from the reserve fund to, do we have to specify where to?
Sue, do they have to specify where to?
You just specify the topic, the fire
Okay.
station roof, I can put it into their account.
So I'm looking for a motion for a request for a reserve fund transfer for $28,462 for the fire station roof.
So motioned.
Motion by Barbara, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Justin. Is there any discussion?
To approve, I'm sorry. I should have probably said motion to approve. So
Motion.
motioned to approve.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Justin, you're willing to second that with Barbara's amendment?
Yep.
Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion to approve?
Aye.
I was trying to get in there before you did it, Matt.
Oh,
I saw you, Greg.
Sorry. I think
I missed it. Sorry.
this is just one of those things that has to be relayed at town meeting this year, that this is happening. And then that, again, I just want everybody to have all of the information.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? It is unanimous. Sue or Deb, do you need us to do anything specific for this now?
I just need the minutes of the meeting to make the journal entry.
All right. So that was easy. And that moves us to the old business portion of our agenda. Does anyone have any liaison reports? We heard from the Capital Committee, so that's our big liaison report for right now. Sorry about that. Any others? Okay, not seeing any. Next item up is correspondence. No correspondence. The next item up is review of minutes. We have minutes that were very expertly prepared for us by Deb from our last meeting, our March 31st meeting. Did everyone get a chance to review those minutes?
Yes.
Is there a motion on those minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes
Second.
of March 31st.
Motion from Russ, second from Barbara for approving the minutes of March 31st. Is there any discussion? Without any discussion, all those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? It is unanimous. And with that, next meeting scheduled is for next Wednesday, April 14th. I think our primary items for agenda will be going over the special and annual town meeting draft warrant articles. Starting to work our way through those, getting any updates from Scott and Sue on where things stand with the budget. And anyone who wants taking over, I did email out the budget that Sue sent, so you should all have that. Anyone taking a look at that over the next week and seeing if there's any areas that they want to highlight or discuss. Does anyone have any questions, topics of discussion, things to bring up, motions?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Justin, seconded by Barbara. Is there any discussion? Without any, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
All those opposed, abstaining, It is unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.